Yes.
Need to be closer to it.
Okay. I'm Sarah C. Wilson, and I'm president of the Southwest chapter of International Association of Workforce Professionals. And I thank you all for coming. Today we honor our brave soldiers and their families. These selfless people are our friends, family, neighbors, and our co-workers. Thank you all for making the ultimate sacrifices for us, the citizens of the United States of America. Because of you, we have many freedoms and rights. We have freedom of speech, religion, the ability to join unions or a political party, and even the right to vote. Because of your sacrifices, we enjoy little things, like being granted the right to marry the person of our choice, the ability to own property, and enjoy a job that we're qualified for. So today we honor and we thank you for your service. Now I would like to introduce our MC, who is Gary Condra, Deputy Director of your Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs. Prior to this appointment, he served as Chief Financial Officer responsible for accounting, budget, capital projects, compliance, and emergency management and risk. He joined the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs in June of 1998 as the Associate Superintendent of the Washington Soldiers' Home in Orton, Washington. Over time, he added Wetzel's business office responsibilities, which led to his becoming the budget and special projects manager for that organization. He successfully led both the new facility construction at Wetzel and the construction of the first state veterans cemetery in medical aid. Prior to joining Veterans Affairs, Gary spent 20 years in the United States Army Medical Service Corps and retired in 1998 as Lieutenant Colonel. In the Army, Gary worked with a number of innovative programs in military health care, including a system of community-based contractor-operated primary care clinics known as Primus. During his military career, he was the recipient of numerous awards and decorations, to include the Legion of Merit, Order of Military Medical Merit, and Meritorious Service Medals. Gary holds a master's degree in healthcare administration from Baylor University and a bachelor's degree from the University of Tennessee. He is a lifetime military member of the Military Officers Association of America and a member of the American Legion. He is married to Rebecca and has 2 children, Christopher and Sarah. I'd like to introduce Gary.
Yay!
Well, welcome everyone. I will promise to shorten my biography. I'm here to do this again next year, so you don't have to listen to all that stuff. But anyway, welcome to the 26th Annual Veterans Day ceremony, and thank you for coming today to pay tribute to our nation's veterans and the infinite sacrifices they've made for us in the past and that they continue to make every day. For 24 years, this event on the beautiful State Capitol grounds was sponsored by the International Association of Workforce Professionals, a nonprofit educational organization of workforce development specialists. Last year, the Washington Federation of State Employees co-sponsored the event. And this year, the 2 sponsors are pleased to welcome the third, the Employment Security Department's brand new Veterans Employee Resource Group. The committee of employees is dedicated to welcoming veterans to the agency, supporting their transition for military service, and encouraging their career growth. A sincere thanks to all 3 of our sponsors. Now I'm honored to announce the presentation of the colors by the Washington Youth Academy, which is part of the Washington Military Department. Will you present the colors? I'll now lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I'm pleased to present Alan Bolsinger of the Washington State Patrol, who will sing America the Beautiful. The artist who designed this memorial to World War II, Simon Cogan, had in mind the well-known lyrics from Amber Waves of Grain when he sculpted the 4,000 individual stalks of wheat to symbolize the servicemen and women who died in the war.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plains. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful, for heroes prove in liberating strife, who more than self their country love, and mercy more than life. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Thank you, Alan. Our first speaker is Jairus Hill, Director of Office Services for the Employment Security Department. Jairus grew up in Marysville, Washington, and enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2001. Jairus spent 5 years there, from 2002 to 2007, serving as an intelligence analyst for the 1st Battalion, 4th Marine Regiment, and later as an intelligence chief for the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. During his time in the Marine Corps, Jairus completed 3 combat tours as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom. His deployments included the initial invasion in 2003, supportive operations in Najaf and Fallujah in 2004, and finally in Ramadi and Fallujah in 2006. During his time in service, Jairus was awarded the Combat Action Ribbon, Navy Commendation Medal, Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, Iraq Campaign Medal, and Presidential Unit Citation. Following his Marine Corps service, Jairus spent 5 years in the Iraqi nuclear operation as a civilian supporting the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers reconstruction efforts and the U.S. Department of State diplomatic mission. Now actively resides in Olympia, Mexico, and nuclear equipment.
This crowd has gotten a lot bigger since I want to start by saying thank you to Gary and all the men and women of his department for everything they do for veterans in our state to help them transition. I'd like to thank the IAWP, the Employment Department's new Veterans Resource Group for all they do, and for the Washington Federation of State Employees for putting on this wonderful ceremony. Thank you very much. I had the pleasure of serving in the Marine Corps for 5 years as an intelligence analyst. And if you'll indulge me for 1 minute, I'd like to ask you to think back to a quite a popular movie from the early 90s called A Few Good Men. We all know it, right? Most of us have seen it. A group of naval lieutenants are defending two young Marines who are being set up by a Marine Corps colonel wrongfully for the death of another. And I'd like you to think about that movie and quickly think about the first line that comes to mind from that movie. Everybody's got it? And I'd bet a paycheck that most of the folks here are thinking of the fiery exchange between Tom Cruise and Jack Nicklaus at the end of the movie. Nicholas is on the stand and he tells Tom Cruise, "You want answers?" Tom Cruise says, "I want the truth." And Nicholas fires back, "You can't handle the truth," right? Show of hands, how many? Did I get it right? Most of you? Okay. When I think of that movie, though, I think of some lines that happened way earlier. They happened right before that defense team of Demi Moore and Kevin Pollak and Tom Cruise head to Guantanamo Bay for the first time. And Demi Moore's character, Lieutenant Commander Holloway, tells Kevin Pollak, "Hey, tell your friend not to get cute down there." The Marines at Guantanamo tend to be fanatical. And Lieutenant Weinberg asks back, "About what?" And Lieutenant Commander Holloway answers, "About being Marines." And I like this quote, because if you know even one Marine, you know that it's not just the Marines in Guantanamo who tend to be fanatical about being Marines. It is something that is bred into us very early. It's why we don't let people call us ex-Marines. We always say former Marine. We say once a Marine, always a Marine. It's why we relish in the nicknames we have for each other. Nicknames that even start as derogatory terms like jarhead, that we now use as terms of endearment. Terms like devil dog that come from the German Trupelhunden, which is what the Germans referred to as the Marines after the Battle of Bellawood in 1918. Trupelhunden translated means hounds from hell, describing how violently and ferociously the Marines fought, even though they were outnumbered and were successful in that battle. Terms like leatherneck that make us think of our history, some of the first Marines who fought on continental ships to create this nation and wore thick strips of leather around their neck to protect themselves from sword slashes of enemy swords. There is a group of people, though, outside of the Marine Corps who know how fanatical Marines tend to be about being Marines. And those are the loved ones, mothers, spouses, fathers, sisters, brothers of Marines. Mothers like my mom, who's joining us today, who watched all three of her sons get on a plane immediately following high school graduation and report to Marine Corps Recruit Depot and become United States Marines. People like her who didn't know a peaceful night's sleep for 9 years between 2003 and 2012, where at least one of her sons weren't deployed into a combat area, doing what their country was asking them to do. People like my wife who still to this day show support and love for former Marines like me, even when those emotional or psychological scars rear their ugly head years after the gunshots stop firing. And it's folks like you who show up at events like this and really show us how much support there is for the men and women who sacrifice so much. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity I had to serve. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to folks like you. Please keep doing what you're doing. It means very much. God bless you, and Semper Fidelis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Now the color guard will lead us to the Winged Victory Monument.
Okay.
And once again, we'd like to thank everyone that's joined us for the 26th Annual Veterans Day ceremony. being hosted by the International Association of Workforce Professionals, or IAWP, Employment Security Department Veteran, the Veteran Employee Resource Group, Washington Federation of State Employees, Local 443, and the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs, obviously. As you see, we've just left the World War II Memorial, and we are now being escorted by the Washington Youth Academy to our next stop during today's Veterans Day ceremony at the Winged Victory Memorial. And from there, we will also kind of just turn catty corner to our POW MIA monument, as well as our Medal of Honor monument. And so this is just a great event ceremony that helps us honor veterans, as well as gives a taste, or rather a look to all of the veterans and military monuments across our beautiful capital here. So 26 years strong, a little rain isn't stopping us from honoring our veterans today, and we absolutely want to thank all of the volunteers, or once again our Washington Youth Academy Honor Guard, and all of our viewers there for helping us honor serving those who serve. So we'll take a brief pause here as we're just kind of, you can see we're all moving on to the Winged Victory Memorial. We'll have some guest speakers there, a special singer there, and after that we'll move on to the Vietnam Memorial and finish off at the Korean War Memorial. So just want to once again thank everyone for honoring veterans and honoring those who served. See, as we exit the trees here, the Capitol becomes visible, and our Winged Victory Memorial also becomes visible there, right there in the middle of the roundabout circle there. So we'll take a kind of a detailed, closer look at the monument there, and then we'll zoom back out. That way we can hear all of our great speakers and presenters, and let's just take a look at how many showed up today just to honor our veterans here.
So speaking to you has been Gary Lott with the Veterans Affairs Department, and I'm Caitlin Cormier with the Employment Security Department. And it is just really, really an honor to be able to do this, and also to see how many folks have turned out on this very, very rainy, chilly day.
So we'll take a look at the monument here. This is the Winged Victory Memorial here. A cloudy day here, but we'll get a little closer so you can get a good description to the memory of our citizens of the state of Washington who lost their lives in the service of the United States during the World War. So the World War I Memorial here.
Jeanette Nelson of the Employment Security Department will now sing God Bless the USA.
Yay!
Okay, I lost my music, so this is
A cappella.
if tomorrow all the things were gone you'd worked for all your life, and you had to start again with just your children and your wives. I thank our lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause this flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget those who died to give that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the hills of Minnesota to the California sun. I'm sorry. Across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget those who died to give that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Yay!
Thank you, Jeanette. That was great. In a moment, we'll turn around to pay tribute to the POW MIA monument with remarks by Lyndsey Beaupre of the Department of Agriculture. Lyndsey is not a veteran, but she's no stranger to the military. Granddaughter to a Vietnam veteran, sister to an Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran, and wife to an Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom veteran. Lyndsey has been supporting veterans for most of her life. After 2 deployments, 5 moves, and countless other trials and tribulations of the military lifestyle can throw your way, she and her family settled here in Washington. She graduated cum laude from Hawaii Pacific University with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and Human Resource Management. She has worked for 3 different state agencies and is currently the recruiter for the Department of Agriculture. With a passion for continuous improvement, connecting people with resources, and career development, Human Resources is a perfect fit. Outside of work, she enjoys photographing Washington's natural beauty and helping others achieve their goals as a wellness coach. Now please turn around and give your attention to Lyndsey at the POW MIA monument.
Is there a microphone over there?
No.
Okay.
Why don't you come here?
That works. When I tried to come up with something to say about the Prisoner of War Missing in Action section of this Veterans Day event, I wasn't sure what to say. I mean, what do you say about all of the thousands and thousands of military service members who are still unaccounted for? How do you write about it, or even speak about something that makes your heart beat? So I asked friends, family, and co-workers about how they would introduce this section of the event. The responses I got were astonishing. One individual actually didn't know what I meant when I used the My brother asked if I wanted to hear stories from his time in the service. Another person said they couldn't even speak on the topic, even if they were paid to do so, because it brings too much sorrow. While this is a very somber topic, we must remember. We must never forget those who never came home. As Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel stated at the Pentagon River Terrace Parade Field on September 19, 2014, the United States of America does not forget. It does not forget its POWs, and for certain does not forget its MIAs and the families they represent. Those who have served, those currently serving in the armed forces, are continuously reminded of the personal sacrifice of those who came before them, those who served with them, and those who may experience similar consequences of war in the future. In order to comprehend the importance of this topic, all you need to do is look at the sheer number of Americans who have been listed as POW MIAs. According to the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, 82,478 Americans who fought in the World War II, Korean, Vietnam, and Gulf Wars are still missing, including 73,014 from World War II, 7,729 from the Korean War, 1,603 from Vietnam, 126 from the Cold War, and 6 from conflict since 1991. The TPAA said about 75% of those missing Americans are somewhere in the Asia Pacific. More than 41,000 have presumed lost at sea. Efforts to find those men, identify them, and bring them home are constant. One way we remember these individuals are the POW MIA flags, which commemorate U.S. service members who are recognized prisoners of war or missing in action. The flag was created in 1971 and began getting national recognition in 1980, when it became the only non-national flag that any federal government anywhere in the world has been mandated to be flown regularly. In 1998, Section 1082 of the Defense Authorization Act, codified as Title 36, Section 902 of the U.S. Code, mandated that the POW-MIA flag be flown over the Capitol, the White House, the Korean and Vietnam Veterans Memorials, the offices of the Secretary of State, Defense and Veterans Affairs, of the Selective Service System, and on the grounds or lobbies of every major military installation, every post office, and all VA medical centers and national cemeteries on 6 days: POW-MIA Recognition Day, Armed Forces Day, Memorial Day, Flag Day, 4th of July, and Veterans Day. Since then, some states have passed laws that also mandate flying the POW-MIA flag. Here in Washington, a 2002 law required every state agency, every state institution of higher education, and every county, city, and town to display the flag on the same 6 holidays. I would like to think that we would voluntarily display this flag, but it is encouraging to know that our lawmakers are still remembering our prisoners of war and missing in action. Other states that require the flag to be displayed include Oregon, Florida, and Arizona. In 2011, Idaho became the first state to require that the POW-MIA flag be flown over all state buildings 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or until such a time as our unaccounted for and missing members of the armed forces return. While flying a flag won't make our loved ones return home, it does serve as a reminder of their sacrifice, a reminder that freedom isn't free.
Thank you, Lyndsey. And for your information, the POW-MIA monument is the first monument right behind you. And then if you look straight back from that, you will see the Medal of Honor memorial. So the Medal of Honor is our next monument that we're going to be visiting. And I would like to, this time, let's see if I'm in my place. We'll turn our attention to the Medal of Honor Monument and to remarks from Daniel Salazar of the Employment Security Department. Daniel is the supervisor for the Employment Security Department's Office of Special Investigations. He delivers support, develops and interprets policy, and provides guidance to protect unemployment funds from fraud or malfeasance. Prior to his employment with the Washington State, Daniel served in the Army for 8 years, where he reached the rank of Staff Sergeant. His military career culminated in service as an infantry fire team leader and squad leader in both the 173rd Airborne Brigade and the 75th Ranger Regiment. During his service, Daniel spent multiple years in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Daniel is a native of Selma, California, a small and also a local small business owner of Edge Fitness and president of the Olympia Killer Man's Sons motorcycle chapter. He is married to Amanda Salazar and they have a daughter, Mia.
Sorry. The Medal of Honor is the United States of America's highest and most prestigious personal military decoration that may be awarded to recognize U.S. military service members who distinguish themselves by acts of valor. The medal is normally awarded by the President of the United States in the name of U.S. Congress. There are 3 versions of this medal, one for the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Personnel of the Marine Corps and Coast Guard receive the Navy version. The Medal of Honor is the oldest continuously issued combat decoration of the United States Armed Forces. On July 25, 1963, the requirements for the Medal of Honor were standardized among all 3 services, requiring that a recipient had distinguished himself conspicuously by gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. The act also clarified that the act of valor must occur during one of 3 circumstances. 1, while engaged in action against an enemy of the United States. 2, while engaged in a military operation involving conflict with an opposing foreign force. 3, while serving with friendly foreign forces engaged in an armed conflict against an opposing armed force in which the United States is not a belligerent party. There are 3,498 recipients of the Medal of Honor, and of those, 35 are accredited to the state of Washington. 73 are living recipients, and 19 have been awarded the medal twice. While my years of service in both the 173rd Airborne Brigade and 75th Ranger Regiment, I had the opportunity to know and work with few Medal of Honor recipients. To name a few: Leroy A. Petrie, Salvatore A. Quinta, Ryan M. Pitts, and Washington's own Kyle J. White. I would like to read your very own and my brother-in-arms Medal of Honor citation. Specialist Kyle J. White distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty while serving as a radio telephone operator with Company C, 2nd Battalion Airborne, 503rd Infantry Regiment, 173rd Airborne Brigade, during combat operations against an armed enemy in Nuristan Province, Afghanistan on November 9, 2007, today. On this day, Specialist White and his comrades were returning to Bella Outpost from Shura with the Ranis village elders. As the soldiers traversed a narrow path surrounded by mountainous, rocky terrain, they were ambushed by enemy forces from elevated positions. Pinned against the steep mountain face, Specialist White and his fellow soldiers were completely exposed to enemy fire. Specialist White returned fire and was briefly knocked unconscious when a rocket-propelled grenade impacted near him. When he regained consciousness, another round impacted near him, embedding small pieces of shrapnel in his face. Shaking off his wounds, Specialist White noticed one of his comrades laying wounded nearby. Without hesitation, Specialist White exposed himself to enemy fire in order to reach the soldier and provide medical aid. After applying the tourniquet, Specialist White moved an injured Marine, providing aid and comfort until the Marine succumbed to his wounds. Specialist White then returned to the soldier and discovered that he had been wounded again. Applying his own belt as an additional tourniquet, Specialist White was able to stem the flow of blood and save the soldier's life. Noticing that his and other soldiers' radios were inoperative, Specialist White exposed himself to enemy fire yet again in order to secure a radio from a deceased comrade. He then provided information and updates to friendly forces, allowing precision airstrikes to stifle the enemy attack and ultimately permitting medical evacuation aircraft to rescue him, his fellow soldiers, Marines, and Afghan Army soldiers. Specialist White, extraordinary heroism and selflessness above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, Company C, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Infantry Regiment, 173rd Airborne Brigade, and the United States Army. Having deployed multiple times and spending the majority of my young adult life in a foreign country, living and experiencing everything that comes along with war, has made me more mentally aware and conscientious on being thankful for everything that is available to me. I would like for everyone to take a second right now to think about what you are grateful in your life, and if not for yourself, then for these brave servicemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, for your remarks. The color guard will now lead us to the Vietnam Memorial.
And we're departing from the World War I Winged Victory Memorial. But before we head over to the Vietnam War Memorial, we'll take one more look at our POW and MIA monument. And directly behind the POW and MIA monument is our Medal of Honor monument. So we'll take a look there. 3 years ago we had 3 new names added to the wall here. So, erected in gratitude by the patriotic societies, veteran organizations, service and professional clubs, labor and business groups, fraternal organizations, and the citizens of the state of Washington. Here, take a quick scroll there. As I mentioned recently, we just had Petrie, Carter, and Swenson added. And I just want to take another moment to thank, at our World War II monument, we had the Washington Youth Academy present the colors. America the Beautiful was sung by Alan Bolsinger from the Washington State Patrol. And our special speaker, guest speaker, was Jarius Rice from the Employment Security Department. As we've made our way to the World War I Winged Victory Memorial, I want to thank Lyndsey Beaupre from Department of Agriculture, Jeanette Nelson from the Employment Security Department for her singing of the God Bless the USA. And we would also like to thank Daniel Salazar from the Employment Security Department for speaking of the Medal of Honor Monument. As I mentioned, now we make our way, led by our Washington Youth Academy Color Guard, to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, where we will be honored to have God Bless America sung by Vincent Anderson from the Healthcare Authority, and our special guest speaker will be Sean Kaskin from the Department of Social and Health Services. So we'll take a wider look here and let everyone take a look at our monuments here. And we definitely invite, if you haven't already had a chance to visit the Capitol and see all of the amazing monuments here, we definitely hope that you get down here, and it's a perfect weekend to come and take a look at and honor our veterans.
Lori, I don't think you got a rose. Oh, hi. Excuse me. I like that. Chad, you're not a short person, but you can stand here.
And we'll just take a look at just some of the names here on the Vietnam Wall there.
Now Vincent Anderson of the Healthcare Authority will perform God Bless America. Thank you, Vincent. I'm pleased to next introduce Sean Kaskin, a child support enforcement officer for the Department of Social and Health Services. Sean served in the Army for 26 years, retiring as a senior non-commissioned officer. He held many jobs and positions while in the Army, starting out as an engineer. He deployed in support of Desert Shield and Desert Storm. He ended his Army career as a platoon sergeant assigned to a high-mobility artillery rocket system unit stationed at Joint Base Lewis McChord. He completed 2 tours to Korea and 4 combat tours, 2 to Iraq and 2 to Afghanistan. Sean has always cared for the welfare of soldiers and continues this care today. He encourages and helps veterans to seek mental health care and assists veterans through the child support process. Even though Sean has accomplished many things in his life, earned many medals, and received ribbons for his service, he feels the proudest when he talks about his hero, his dad, who is a Vietnam veteran.
All right. Thanks for the introduction. I want to thank Employment Security Department for allowing me this opportunity. Also, can we give a thanks to these young men and women over here? I have been in their shoes before, and I know it is tough. You don't want to use please. And also, in the Army, we have a saying. Can everybody hear me? I don't do this. All right. That's senior NCO coming out. Oh, if it's not raining, we're not training. So, yeah, here we are. Okay, today we are gathered in the front of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. The names of the 1,102 or 1,124 Washingtonians are etched in stone in remembrance of their ultimate sacrifice. And some may say that we should be here celebrating Veterans Day. But I would disagree because this is the perfect place. As we honor and recognize the Vietnam veterans, we are in the midst of their brothers and sisters who paid that ultimate sacrifice.
Use the microphone.
Yeah, hear me now? Okay. Now it's raining. Now, this memorial, we are reminded of those that have lost their lives in Vietnam. But I would ask, what do we do for those that are still alive and still dealing with the sacrifices that they went through? And that's what we are here today to do. And that's what Veterans Day is all about, is to honor the men and women for their patriotism, love of country, and their unselfish willingness to serve and sacrifice for their country. And I'm honored to have one of these veterans as my dad. Because of him, I became interested in the history of the Vietnam War, and I believe it is important to everyone to have a basic understanding of why the United States risked the lives of nearly 3 million service members in this conflict. So I'll just give a real brief history. So Vietnam is located on the eastern edge of the Indo-Chinese Peninsula. It is covers about 330,000 kilometers, and at its narrowest point, it's 30 kilometers wide, which is approximately, figured out, 50 kilometers wide, which is about 30 miles wide. And Vietnam was under the French colonial rule since the 19th century, and during World War II, the Japanese forces invaded Vietnam. These two events inspired a political leader named Ho Chi Minh to come to power, and he was inspired by the Chinese and Soviet communism, and he formed the Viet Minh, or League for the Independence of Vietnam. And after Japan was defeated in 1945 and withdrew their forces, Ho saw the opportunity to seize control, and his forces rose up and took control of the northern city of Hanoi, declaring a Democratic Republic of Vietnam. And this followed shortly after, with the France-backed emperor setting up the state of Vietnam with Saigon at its capital. And this is important to understand because this is also in the midst of the beginning of the Cold War. And it started the conflicts between the North and South, ending in the defeat of the French forces at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, and if I missed that, I apologize, in May 1954, and later the treaty splitting the two Vietnams at the 17th parallel. And this is when the United States really got involved with Vietnam. Now I say this because people like my dad knew very little about this little country in Indo-Chinese peninsula because he was a teenager. He was doing what teenagers do. He was chasing girls, he was fishing, hunting, hiking, and he was growing up in this small town or city called Bremerton, Washington. To him and many other Vietnam veterans, Vietnam was nowhere on their horizon. And my dad did what we all have done. He filled out his form, his selective service form, when he turned 18, and then went on with his life. And the only lottery he's ever won was in 1966 when his number came up. Okay. And then he reported to basic training. As with many other family members and children who grew up with somebody that has suffering from PTSD and dealing with the unseen demons of war, it was challenging for me as a son. However, every story my dad told me brought better understanding and better, excuse me for a minute, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, alrighty. And this is why, okay. And had a life lesson in each of his stories. And I'm going to share just a few because these stories that he had, a lot of other veterans would share similar stories. My first life lesson I learned from him was people are people no matter what. And for him, he left the safety of Bremerton, Washington, in Mason County because he lived on his own after graduation. He went off to Fort Ord, California for basic training. Then he went to Georgia for advanced training. And that's when he first got his first shock of his life. He couldn't understand why there were separate drinking fountains. And he did not understand why he could not wash his colors in the white-only washing machines. Until somebody explained to him what that meant. And this, people would say, well, was your dad young? No, my dad was 25 years old when he was drafted, so it wasn't like he was a young person. But this was all new to him. And he continued this lesson with the stories of his battle buddy or partner in Vietnam. Wills was a black man from New York City who had two choices. He could serve prison or he could join the military. And he was a gang leader, and as my dad would say, he still ran his gang from Vietnam. And my dad was one of the only white people that he really got close to. And they had some terms of endearment that I will not mention here, but only those two have those terms that they can use. Now, together for that year, they experienced many adventures and near-death experiences, from escorting chaplains to the local orphanages to conducting supply runs out of Dong Ben Thin, which is west of Cam Ranh Bay, to providing gunner duties for the helicopters of the 10th Combat Aviation Battalion. My dad likes to tell me some funny stories. There's one time that Wells, who's the supply sergeant, they were trying to get some supplies for the chaplains, and they went to the Air Force base. How many Air Force people have I got here? All right, so no offense, but the Air Force police caught him, and Wells convinced the police that he was just unloading the supplies, and the Air Force police made him load up all of the supplies. So they got a lot more than they bargained for. And for every funny story, there are many that are not. And he doesn't always share them, but he has talked to me because I am also suffering from PTSD. So we talked about a lot of this. And one of these stories involved a supply run when they were blasted out of their truck from rocket-propelled grenade, and they sat back to back shooting whatever moved. And he still refuses to this day to pay for those water buffalo. But I don't blame him. They formed that tight bond that many of us other veterans have formed in the time of war. But that bond ended the day that my dad left Vietnam, as well as told them, our lives, we are two different people, and we come from two different worlds. And what they had, they did for survival. And this was my second lesson. No matter how different we are, that special brotherhood that the military service provides will stay with us forever. The third and hardest lesson I learned is that people can be very cruel. When my dad came back from Vietnam, just like all the other Vietnam vets, he was treated as a second-class citizen. And I won't dwell on this part, but it's important to understand that these veterans who answer the call from their country were treated so poorly from the ordinary people. These people that watch the war on TV, but never actually experienced the chaos and tragedy of the war. But because of their treatment after returning home, no veteran of the current wars have ever experienced that, or will. My dad and the veterans of the Vietnam War ensured that we were treated with respect and dignity when we came home. And the war in Southeast Asia officially ended for the United States in 1973, but the effects have lingered on to the present. Today isn't the day to debate the political reasons why we went to war, but it's a day to give thanks and welcome home the Vietnam veterans that have served unselfishly. So I will end this by saying thank you and welcome home.
Thank you, Sean. We really appreciate that. And now the Color Guard will lead us to the Korean War Memorial, which is across Capitol Boulevard, which is our last stop.
Thanks for coming out.
But don't tell anybody who are going to steal an umbrella from them. I don't want to take their umbrella. You don't think? I feel like I'm going to. What did you do?
All right, and as we depart the Vietnam Memorial Monument, Vietnam Veterans Memorial Monument and Wall, we want to once again thank Vincent Anderson from the Healthcare Authority for his performance of God Bless America. Our special guest speaker, Sean Kaskin from the Department of Social and Health Services. Now our Washington Youth Academy is going ahead and they're leading us on to the last stop of today's ceremony at the Korean War Memorial, where we'll have a special speaker, Felicia Wright from the Employment Security Department, give us some kind words, and we will have our last performance from Alan Bolsinger from Washington State Patrol, who will be performing the Star Spangled Banner. I want to thank everybody again for joining us and supporting our veterans today and supporting veterans this weekend. And we're going to go on a little trek now across the bridge to our last stop today.
So any of you who come to Olympia to visit the memorials, there are quite a few on the campus, and they're very, very beautiful, and they're very touching to go visit. As Gary mentioned, we're heading over to the Korean War Memorial, and it's actually on a separate part of the Capitol campus in Olympia, Washington. We do have a lot of people with us today, which is really, really heartening. It is quite rainy here on this November afternoon, and there's quite a few people here taking this trek with us as we journey across Capitol Way to some of our other memorials. See just some of the sites in Olympia, crossing over, and a lot of folks following us over. You'll notice as we get to the Korean War Memorial, the monument itself shows soldiers in foul weather gear. So it's interesting because it's almost like we're feeling a little bit, at least, of the inclement weather. Obviously not the actual hardship of being there.
We make it to our last stop here at the Korean War Veterans Memorial. We'll take a little walk around here and get it.
It was known as the Forgotten War.
Information plates here that kind of give you a short briefing on the beginning of the Korean War, just some of the important historical dates and events and battles. And here, as I mentioned, at our last stop today. Just once again, we can't thank our Washington Youth Academy enough for the dedication and support today.
This is the monument that I was speaking of. Very, very emotionally evoking.
We also want to thank all of our attendees today for braving the weather to come out and support our veterans.
Now I'd like to introduce our final speaker, Felicia Wright, a human relations consultant for the Employment Security Department. Felicia served in the Air Force from 1980 to 1984, stationed in Maine, Turkey, and Montana. She also served in the Army from 1986 to 2005 and was stationed in Germany, Korea, and here at Joint Base Lewis McChord. Alicia spent her entire military career in the Finance Corps performing accounting and military pay operations. She was deployed to Florida, Kuwait, and Kosovo. She also served a combat tour in Iraq in 2003 and 2004. While she served in the Army, she performed all responsibilities required of her, while at the same time she was a single parent. After the military, Felicia worked for a manufacturing company in Seattle, performing payroll and other human resource functions. While employed there, she returned to college and received a business degree with a major in human resources. She has worked for the Employment Security Department since 2004.
Yay!
Can everybody hear me?
No.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. It's fabulous to speak to everyone today at the Korea War Memorial. My dad was drafted to fight in this war. He was a young person of 20, plucked from his farmhand job in South Carolina to fight in this war. All he asked for was for his then girlfriend to wait for him upon his return. 2 years later, she was still waiting, and that woman later became my mom. This leads up to where I want to talk about today, which is the sacrifices that veterans, their family members, and others who are involved in ensuring the veterans' success. Millions of military servicemen and women have fought and died on battlefields here and abroad to defend our freedom and our way of life. Today, our troops continue to make the ultimate sacrifices, and even as we lose troops, more and more Americans step forward to say, I am ready to serve. They follow in the footsteps of generations of fine Americans. Just to give you a little bit of history about me, I served the bulk of my military career as a single parent. I lived and died by the document that single parents had to have, which was a family care plan. That legal document had to let the military know when I worked, when I had to go on deployment, and when I got to work overtime, who are going to watch my kids? So I still had the same responsibility as everyone else, and what it allowed me to do was to still perform the job that I loved, which was taking care of soldiers and their families. During my military career, I missed a lot of firsts with my kids. I missed birthdays and new events in their lives. Although difficult, they understood and supported my decision to continue serving in the military to allow them to have the freedoms that they enjoy today. Some things I do recall when my kids were very little, I had to get them up very early in the morning because we would have physical training at 6:30, which is PT for everybody else. So I'd be dropping them off to one of my entourage of daycare providers that would take the poor little sleepy kids in at 5:45 in the morning so that I could be ready and see my soldiers in the morning so that we can do some PT. Usually when a military member has to be away, their family members are affected as well. The husband, wife, brother, sister now has to step in and now in charge of keeping the household together. This support allows the military member to accomplish their mission and perform duties without worrying about the family that they left behind. Here's some history about the origins of Veterans Day. Veterans Day, originally called Armistice Day, was originally designated as a day to celebrate the end of World War I. The First World War ended November 11, 1918. As time went on and we engaged in further conflicts during World War II, Korea, veterans groups lobby for a change. Rather than honoring the armistice and those who served in World War I, the holiday would now honor all veterans from every war and conflict the United States has encountered. We honor our troops and their service and sacrifice ever since. I can recall a time when I deployed to Iraq in 2003. I had to ask my then 19-year-old daughter to step in and be mom for her 9-year-old brother while I was gone in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom for 2003 and 2004. Your presence here today is a tribute to those veterans and their families. It's a way to say that we remember. From the soldiers who shivered and starved through the winter at Valley Forge, to those crouched in the muddy trenches of France, to the men and women patrolling the mountains of Afghanistan, and the platoon who patrolled the hazy jungles of Vietnam, and those protecting us at home, we're here to remember and honor them all. In closing, as you're out and about this weekend, on Veterans Day, thanking a veteran for their service. Also, thank the family members for their support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. And now please welcome back Ellen Bolsinger, who will sing our national anthem.
I apologize. Technically, I don't need the words, but I don't want to play Christina Aguilera at the Super Bowl neither. So, just to be safe, we got him here. Do I really need this, y'all think? We'll find out. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets spread glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Yeah! Ow!
Thank you, Alan. Before the Washington Youth Academy performs the closing flag ceremony, I want to thank all of our speakers and musicians today. Your stories and music were fitting tributes to the Washington veterans and veterans from around our great country. And again, I thank the International Association of Workforce Professionals, the Washington Federation of State Employees, and Employment Security Veteran Employee Resource Group for sponsoring this beautiful Veterans Day event. Many thanks to our color guard. We're so honored to have you here today. Most of all, we thank all our veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice on our behalf. Color Guard, will you please perform the closing ceremony? this concludes our ceremony. Thank you for coming, and please join us at the Employment Security Department right across the plaza for a complimentary lunch hosted by the Washington Federation of State Employees.
Once more, just want to thank everybody again for helping honor those that have served. We wish everyone a happy Veterans Day. This is Gary Lott with Washington Department of Veterans Affairs.
And this is Caitlin Cormier with Employment Security.
And thank you for